Brittany McLean here in the CBC Sports Digital Studios in Toronto. Now, it's a very big day in the world of Olympic sports. The IOC have officially elected the first female president. To break it all down with me here over in Greece is Carissa Donkin, CBC Sports reporter. Now, Carissa, I'm going to start with that. I mean, we dropped the bomb. It's big news. Tell us about what you're feeling over there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the initial sentiment here, Britt, when the results were announced was just shock because nobody expected that this was going to be wrapped up in one ballot. There were three frontrunners going into this campaign, so we thought it could take two, it could take maybe three rounds of voting, and it was done and dusted in just a few minutes. And of course, as you said, it was a historic decision, and you could hear just among the throngs of the press when they announced her name, sort of the oh and the ahs type of thing. So that was a really cool moment to be a part of.
Yeah, and as a fellow swimmer, I am thrilled by this decision. Kirsty Coventry, of course, a 7-time Olympic medalist in the pool. We retired at the same game, so I feel specially connected to this one, and I'm so proud to see this go to a woman and have the next generation of athletes look up to her. And she said she is standing firm on understanding how, the weight that she now carries. So I wondered if you could break down a little bit about the platform she ran on and what makes her different from the other candidates.
For sure. And just on that first bit, Britt, she was just speaking actually just at the podium above me here. And she was talking about, those two identities that she has. She's the first African to hold this position, and of course the first woman as well, as you mentioned. But that's not all that she is. That's part of her identity. But she said, "I'm so glad the members saw me as more than that." And so she ran on a platform of transparency and also on prioritizing athletes. She spoke in January, which was the only time that actually the candidates did a question and answer with the press. And she talked about trying to provide more support for athletes. And she said, in my journey, it was really hard to get to the first Olympic medal. Once you get that first medal, it's easy to get support, but getting there is awfully hard. So that's something she's keeping in mind. And it's something that Sebastian Coe, who ran against her, finished in third place, mentioned after the vote as well. He said, I think athletes will be confident to see that another athlete is going to be at the helm for the next few years.
Yeah, and speaking of another athlete, the only Canadian voting member was Trisha Smith, who's a president of the COC and an athlete herself. So what I want to know, you got a chance to chat with her. Did she give you any indication of her feelings and what this means for Canada?
Yeah, she supported Coventry's campaign, and she was just thrilled to see that she was elected. And she mentioned talking to some of her fellow candidates, or excuse me, some of her fellow members who voted today, and they said, we didn't vote for her because she's a woman. Obviously, that's historic. That's fantastic. But they felt she was the best person for the job. And when she was talking about that, she highlighted her values. She said that, you can go out and you can hire experts. You can bring in experts on different topics and whatnot. But if you don't have the right values, then you're not going to be successful in the position. So she also said, we know that Kirsty Coventry is 41 years old, so the second youngest IOC president ever. And Trisha Smith sees her as somebody who's going to be able to relate to youth. And that's important because one of the big issues facing the next president is just modernizing the Olympics. And, so many young people obviously turning to TikTok before they flip a TV on and just making sure that the Olympics relate to those people, that they feel engaged with it. That's going to be one of her big challenges. And that's one that Trisha Smith said, she thinks she's the perfect person for that job.
Yeah, I can't wait, Carissa, to see your TikToks from on the ground. I'm sure they'll be phenomenal. But I think it's really fun to watch this changing of the guard. I've seen already on social media, it's blowing up. I mean, there's been a ton of support already, which is really, really cool and really invigorating to hear. But we know there's going to be challenges ahead for this next president. Of course, she takes over from Bach in June on Olympic Day. So about a month and a half, 2 months for her to, or I guess that's 3 months, but she's going to get settled and figure out what her platform is going to need to be. She ran on, as you said, transparency, but can you give us a bit of the inside knowledge on the biggest key, things, the State of the Union? What are the leaders of tomorrow in this space needing to have to manage?
For sure. Well, I should say, Britt, it's a changing of the guard. Obviously, she's going to be different than the current president, Thomas Bach. But it is important to note that, she was his preferred candidate throughout the race and said to be the person that he would like to see win. So that's important to note. But she's got a number of challenges that she's going to face, Britt. I mean, the biggest of all is climate change. We know that it threatens the future of the summer and the winter Olympic Games. And then when we look a little bit further down the road in Los Angeles in 2028, the next president of the IOC, who we now know is Kirsty Coventry, is going to have to deal with US President Donald Trump. And she was asked about that today. And she said, I've been dealing with, let's say, difficult men since I was 20 years old. And it's going to start for her with communication. So she says that communication with President Trump is going to happen soon. But, she said they're not going to waver from their Olympic values. Of course, the Olympics are politically neutral. And then the other issue that she talked about a little bit today, Britt, is just the issue of transgender athletes, transgender women being allowed to compete in the female category. That's something the IOC doesn't have a blanket policy on right now. It's up to the international sporting federations to make their own policies. She would like to see the IOC get more involved, and they're going to create a task force on that issue. But she said that she would like the female category to be protected. What exactly that looks like, she said they're going to study it, but that's obviously a topic that a lot of people have been talking about.
Great to learn, great to kind of dissect it with you. You've now been in Greece for a few days. I'm just going to close it out by asking, what's your lasting impression on what's the future of the Olympic movement look like, whether it's a comment somebody made or the energy in the room? How are you leaving Greece?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of people have been talking about just the energy in Paris, the sort of reinvigoration of the games, and people didn't really know, what the future was going to be during the pandemic. And Paris, I think a lot of people would agree, kind of brought back the spirit of the Olympics, and I think that carried into what we saw here in Greece. And just to kind of tie it all together, Kirsty Coventry, when she was speaking just above me, she was talking about how her Olympic journey had its first milestone in this country when she won her first Olympic medal in Athens in 2004. And now, of course, it's come full circle more than 20 years later here again.
So special. Well, we're really appreciative of your time, Chris. I know it's been a busy day, but thank you. And that's the really big news of the day that we wanted to make sure everyone was aware of. The first female IOC president, the 10th president of the IOC, the first from Africa, and the second youngest, Kirsty Coventry, will take to the position in June. Thanks for your time again, and have a safe trip home.
Thanks, Britt. Always a joy to talk to you.
You too.